So, our topic today is about renewal, which seems completely appropriate for spring. After all, you can see the renewal of nature all around us this time of year. And when we thought about what we wanted to look at this time together, the renewal, of course, that we want to encourage in terms of our planet, of our environment, and also the renewal of our own hearts, our own minds. So we're going to look a little bit on the external level, but I think most of the focus this morning will be on the internal level, because that's the place from which all of the renewal that a human being can affect in the world comes from. And certainly the Buddha, if you look at the early teachings, the Buddha was mostly focused on the renewal of the heart, of training the mind, of developing the skill of living in a way that brings beauty, peace, happiness to life, and safety also to all living beings, just through the way that we live and the way that we behave. So when we were talking about the theme for today, the first thing that I thought of in terms of renewal was a renewal of loving kindness in the heart. You know, it's certainly the case these days that we hear about a lot about mindfulness and about all different kinds of things that mindfulness can be applied to. But when you think about, whether it's, applied to being a savvier stock trader, or having a better golf score, or being more productive at work, or whatever, it's very quickly, for those of us who show up at an event like this, at least, we're more likely to look at what the Buddha had intended around mindfulness, which was that we are observing our mind. We're present with what we're doing. We're present with what we're thinking. And those very first words of the Dhammapada, where the Buddha talks about how the mind is chief, everything follows the way that we think. So mindfulness helps us through the whole day to be able to come back to, what state is my mind in? How am I thinking? How am I relating to what I'm doing right now? And it's very easy to get caught up in our activities or what's occurring in the moment. And it's very easy to kind of run the meta tank down to a very low level sometimes, depending on what's going on, right? So even something as simple as, having a project. Actually, yesterday I was, my task was painting the trim of our new kuti. So we painted the ground part of it, the main, all exterior walls, but yesterday I was really hoping to get the trim finished. And there were a number of roadblocks to the success of this project. And it took so much longer than I had expected for various reasons. And it's easy for the mind, like when we have expectations about, what we're going to get done, or how things should be, or how other people should behave, it's really easy to get into a mental pattern of thinking, well, this should not be this way. This shouldn't be taking this long. Why didn't this person leave things in a better, something? I mean, that wasn't happening yesterday, but, it's easy to think of or reflect on or remember times when we've felt things just aren't the way they should be, and things aren't going the way they should be. And then with mindfulness, checking in, but is there really anything wrong? I could actually be happy while I'm doing this, even though it's tedious, frustrating. Things are not like they could be frustrating, I guess is the point. But do we have to be frustrated? And it's interesting because even just that thought, even just that mindful checking in on, wait a minute, what am I focused on here? Can I be happy and do this? And it reminded me of this famous story of Ajahn Chah asking the monks to move a pile of dirt somewhere, and then he went away, and the person who took over his the running of the monastery while Ajahn Chah was away told the monks to move the dirt to a different spot. It's a whole pile of dirt. They were shoveling all day. When Ajahn Chah came back, he's like, no, I wanted it in that other place. They did it again. And the upshot, the realization for them, 3 days of moving dirt for no good reason, it seemed like, was, well, if I can't be happy, even, move dirt all day and just be happy, what's wrong with me? It's like, regardless of what the situation is, we can come to this renewal of the mind. It's like we can bring back happiness, joy, loving kindness, even just from noticing that it's not there right now. And why? Why is this so hard for me right now? And so it's like there's this kind of opportunity to change the mind. And of course, it's not always that easy, is it? I mean, sometimes what we're dealing with is a lot more challenging than just the physical work or the mental work. It might be relationships. Like, what is it that we are wanting to be different? Perhaps in a relationship that we're in with someone that we care about. It's not so easy to be happy. It's not just about putting on a smile, although smiling helps. They even say chemically in our system. But it's not easy. You can't just paint it all rosy, can we? It doesn't work. But we can come back to what's really important. We can come back to the fact that, people aren't going to think, act, be the way we want all the time. And we aren't even for ourselves. And how do we give ourselves that space, that break, to be able to bring in kindness, no matter how faulty our own behavior or the behavior of others might be? It's like there's this opportunity to be there with a presence that's basically and fundamentally kind, accepting, loving, regardless, even when the mind, our own mind, is caught up in something. It's like we're cultivating and developing strength in that part of the mind that observes and brings the qualities that we want in our life to the foreground. As I was thinking about this renewal of the mind, I was remembering meeting a man many years ago now who's a professor in one of the universities in this area. And he talked about how when he was young, like a young college student, he met this girl in his class, and he said she was so different from the other students. Students would be complaining about the exams or what the teachers are wanting, or what other people are doing or whatever, and she was not ever. she was happy and bright and light. It was like when she'd come in the room, she brought the sun with her. And he was fascinated and of course, really wanted to get to know her. And as he did get to know her, he learned that, well, this was quite a long time ago, that she had been in a concentration camp in Germany. And that when she was released, she was so appreciative of everything. Every flower, every sunset, every person. And he said that that state was just her normal. She didn't lose it. He wound up marrying her. When I met him, he had been married for decades already. And, to just kind of recognize that, of course, that wasn't the outcome for many people who had gone through what she went through. And how much of that is a choice? And this is something we can examine in our own life. How much of our mood in this moment is a choice? And how much of it depends upon what we think, where we put our focus. But this doesn't mean that we avoid looking at problems, but can we look at the problems, be present with the problems from a perspective of wisdom, seeing the naturalness of that, seeing, for example, we can be very distraught about things that happen in our lives. And yet what the Buddha tried to impress upon us is that much of it, it's a natural thing. Aging, sickness, death, losing something, things being broken. This is all natural. And so when we're experiencing grief, this is also natural. And to have the reflective, wise part of the mind bring up compassion and kindness towards ourselves. So I'm not trying to say that we, shove it down, push it away, but instead embrace, notice, but then also shift. Remind ourselves, as the Buddha said, that I'm not the only one who goes through this. This is how life is. And it's okay. There's nothing wrong. At a very deep sense, there's nothing wrong. It's a natural way of things. And by looking at things this way, in the text, the way the Buddha put it is that an untaught ordinary person becomes distraught. But the noble disciple says, I'm not the only one who experiences this. This is the way things are. And just that shift to recognizing that the things that we find difficult are a natural part of life helps us to renew and bring forward compassion and kindness, patience, wisdom. It's a renewal of the heart. So yesterday, what was going on is that I was removing the painting tape from the part that was protecting the trim so that I could paint it. And the painting tape was ripping in a way that I couldn't get all of it off the boards, and so it took a lot of time. And it's like, but there's nothing wrong. It's easy to feel frustrated if we don't think about it, but there's nothing really wrong. then how do I apply that to bigger things? When my mom was dying, you know, in some ways it was easier then to really go immediately to the Buddhist teachings and know that there was nothing wrong. This was natural. It's what happened. How can I be with this from a place of peace, kindness, compassion for myself and whatever I felt, for her and whatever she was going through? And so I think in some way, the most, at this moment at least, the most prominent feeling that arises for me is gratitude that the Buddha taught this way, that he showed us the true nature, that he pointed at the true nature of things and how they arise and cease. That there are the cycles that keep continuing. So here we are in spring, the renewal of life. I look outside and, like, it's hard for you to see right behind me right now, these beautiful redwoods, but the maple leaves are out fresh and flowers, and, it's like, it's all so beautiful. And in the fall, it's all going to dry up and die away. And this is true for everything around us as well. It comes and it goes. How can we train the mind to bring forward the qualities that, when we develop them, they're the things that stay? Generosity, virtue, it's something that we can really rely on. These qualities, when we practice, this becomes our character. And that's actually something that continues on with us. That has an impact on the future. That sets up the causes and conditions for well-being, for beauty, for wonder, for safety. There's a beautiful sutta that I'm sure you've heard at some point, the Mangala Sutta, the highest blessings. And at the end, the Buddha says, if you live this way, you're safe wherever you go. It's about virtue and generosity and kindness, patience. And the trick is not to think, oh, well, I'm not doing enough, or I'm not patient all the time, or, I should be more generous. It's more about having the kindness and generosity towards ourselves, even when we think like that. It's like there's always that way to step back and put what's happening into a context that allows us to soften and find relief. So when we think about the renewal inside, I think of it as a mental training. When we think about the renewal in the world, because our own development of generosity and virtue and kindness can easily be related to some of the big, sweeping experiences in the world. When we start talking about social justice, climate justice, these kinds of larger issues that we've seen really coming to center stage in these past months. And we can see some, I believe we can see some renewal happening there. Where, right now, there's a shift happening. And if we wish to, we can find ways to put some energy and support and encouragement in those directions too, to really help that develop in the world. And at the same time, remembering that we can make progress within the cycles of renewal and change, the arising and ceasing, the cycles that are natural. There still is this progress. And this is how we move towards enlightenment too. It's more like a spiral. You go through the cycles, but you make progress if we choose to put our effort in that direction.